Hello friends, TechManPat here. Today we're going to the next level. We've done electric scooters, we've done electric skateboards. It's time for an electric bike. But this time around, it's not just some generic bike that you can ride around on streets. No, this is a mountain bike. So this is the Reid Cycles Sphinx e-bike. It is an electric mountain bike or trail bike, whatever you want to call it. And it's really darn cool. It's so big, I couldn't really even fit it in the frame. So you're just gonna have to look at some of the B shots and of course the videos we got from riding around on a mountain, riding around in the bush, and just riding around on the streets. So huge thanks to Reid Cycles for sending me this bike for review. Super fun. And let's get started by rolling the intro. Well, let me give you a bit of context about my cycling career. I use this bike right here. This here is my everyday commute. I do about 40 Ks a day when I go to the office, and I know you can't tell, but I tend to also eat a bit. So in any case, this is very light, and I'm used to riding this long distances. I'm used to riding it just on flats, no bumps, there's no suspension on this, but it is very light and it is very fast. So I've got enough stamina to ride a bike. It is a different set of muscles. I probably won't go for a run, but I can ride a bike for a long distance. So let's jump into the overview of the Reid Cycles Sphinx. The Reid Sphinx bike weighs just under 30 kilograms. That's quite a bit compared to my other bike, which was around 9 kilograms. And that makes this kind of unwieldy to take around the house or even get it out into a car. You kind of just have to have a massive, very strong bike rack. So transportation of this is difficult, but the front wheel pops off really easily. It's got an awesome locking mechanism. Well, let's talk about some numbers and specs. First of all, this bike retails for 3,800 Australian dollars. Right now on special for $3,500. I'll put those links below so you can check it out. It is straight from the Reid store. Now this frame has some awesome features on the back here. This is a 4-bar horsed rear suspension. It is impressive. It gives you an extremely comfortable ride, and so is the front forks right here. Really good, which means you will glide along the ground. No matter the rocks, no matter the gravel, you won't really feel much. This velo seat right here, the gel padding is great too. It's nice and wide. It gives you lots of grip for your thighs to grip on when you're going around corners very fast. And of course, it is very comfortable. I didn't have to wear any padding shorts for about 2-hour ride, and that is really nice. The battery and motor is internal, and it is nicely shrouded by obviously the frame and some plastic coverings right here. It is in the front chest area here. It is bulky, but it does not get in the way of riding. The Ananda motor at the bottom is very powerful, but really small, and it puts out 110 Newton meters of torque, which is incredible. We'll talk about the experience of that in a moment. To make sure you stop, we've got 180 millimeter Shimano rotors on the back and front, hydraulic disc brakes at the front and back. Absolutely fantastic braking, but it is also needed. To add to your grip, we've got some 29-inch tires from Maxxis. These are really nice, very chunky, very grippy, and to be honest, fantastic, except I've managed to get 2 flat tires on the front by riding around in the bush where there are a lot of prickles. They managed to get right in between and hit the tube inside. On the shifters, we've got the Shimano Dior's 11 speed, and also it's got a bit of a clutch system, which means that when you're flying through the mountains, you can switch really quickly without taking your foot off the torque. This is really important, especially going up a hill, that you're able to change on the fly so you don't stop and get stuck and potentially fall and hurt yourself. The handlebars are wider than what I'm used to at 760 millimeters, but they feel really good, and the grips on the sides have a little palm rest and they are fully adjustable. The battery is also massive at 36 watts and 15 amp hours. It gets around 100 kilometers of range, and that's really interesting. It doesn't mean you go on a mountain for 100 kilometers. It actually means that anytime it turns on is when it's actually using it. So you're not using it going downhill, you're only using it when the torque kicks in, when you're going up a hill or a mountain. So it'll be a couple of kilometers, maybe in total. After 2 hours on a mountain, I used no bars of the battery. And the smarts in this obviously figures it out when you need the torque. At the highest setting of 5 out of 5, it will kick up to 25 kilometers an hour. So if you're pedaling and you're going slower than 25, you will have the motor kick in, which is awesome when you just want to fly up a hill to get to the top and then just go crazy down. In any case, all the visuals are on this little screen right here. It's not anything fancy, but it gives you a speedometer, it gives you what settings you're on, and it gives you some information about battery. Finally, who can ride this? Well, it says a maximum of 100 kilograms on top, which also includes the gear that you might be wearing. However, I am much more than 100 and I was wearing a little bit more gear and it was absolutely fine. Now lastly, Reid gives you some incredible value by buying their branded bike. First of all, there is a lifetime warranty on the frame and forks. That's pretty good. And there is 2 years on the non-consumable parts and 1 year or 5,000 kilometers, whichever comes first, on the e-bike components. And you get 2 free services for the first 12 months. And so I highly suggest you take this back every 6 months for a service. So let me tell you about my experience of riding this bike across 3 sections of Perth. First of all, a pure flat ride across to the city from where I live, about 20 kilometers. Secondly, riding around the bush, trees all around you, but very wide areas. And then of course, taking it through some proper man-made trail rides. I won't spend too much time on taking this through the city streets because this is not what the bike is made for. What I will mention is that generally when I ride my road bike into the city, it takes me about 45 minutes, and using this, it also took me around 45 minutes. But further than that, the main difference was that the ride felt a little bit slower. Heaps of people were passing by me, but it meant that my heart rate was much lower. At 159 heart rate compared to 183 when I ride my road bike, this meant I arrived pretty darn fresh. It's a very comfortable ride with the suspension front and back. Honestly, it was a boring ride and I don't recommend using this for the road. So secondly, I took this into the bush and that's really when the fun started. This was an area where I could skid around corners, I could fly through downhills and not really worry about hitting a tree. It was wide areas of dirt and crushed limestone. This is actually where I got my punctures in the front, and it was the next night when I noticed that the front tire was flat. So keep an eye out on your tires. Things can happen. These are technically consumables. Furthermore, flying around there, I used the brakes quite a lot. The rotors were absolutely fantastic in the dusty areas. I gave this bike a clean, but after that ride, the bike was almost white from the dust in that area. So braking around corners was so much fun. Doing skids, the back tires held up really well. Now speaking of the front, whenever I went mountain biking with just normal bikes, I found myself braking on the front and losing grip. That did not happen here. The front brakes would grip the gravel and just slide straight or whichever way I was pointing. Furthermore, the wheelbase is really wide, so when you take corners at high speeds, you do need to lean into the corners much more. However, the tires being so wide themselves give you a lot of grip in those turns. Going up hills was a blast. As soon as I put my foot down and my speed dropped below 25 kilometers an hour, the Ananda motor kicks in and the torque is incredible. I gave it to my father-in-law to try, who's been mountain biking on normal bikes for his entire life, and his first words were, "This is so weird." It is strange when you first jump on and you feel that kick, and at some areas it's so powerful that the back wheel will spin, so be careful when you're just jumping on. Going back to the setting 1, 2 and 3, that is probably the best riding scenario if you want to take it easy up a hill. At the same time, you will need to adjust your shifters with the incline of the mountain, because if you are on a too high of a shifter, it is giving power to your pedals, and so you need to make sure that the back wheel matches it. Otherwise it will kind of stall and you don't want to burn out your motor. So with the road test and a bit of a bush bash, this bike was still not in its element. Finally, I got to go to Langford Park in Perth, and that's where I really saw the benefits of this bike, and that's where I had the most amount of fun. And honestly, I cannot wait to go back again and try it. However, I do have to return the Sphinx, so I don't have much time left. So on the trail, it was awesome. First of all, starting from the bottom, you're gonna go up, you're gonna hit some really nice thin trails. There's gonna be trees right next to you, and at first that really wide handlebar does give you a little bit of anxiety, but you get used to throwing that around pretty quickly. Because of that wide wheelbase, it does also mean that you have to make sure to hit those corners at the right angle and technically at the right speed. Going around the really thin parts, I had to tone down the power of the bike because it was just speeding too fast and it was throwing me out of the corners. So when I turned it down, I was able to pedal lightly and still get that torque. And after 2 hours, I didn't feel tired. I wanted to keep going, but I just ran out of time. Now let's talk about jumps. That is probably the most exciting things for young folk who can actually manage it. And I have to say, you have to be very fast going into the jumps. Much faster than you would be on a classic mountain bike. Those are much lighter. This is much heavier and you will fall like a rock very, very quickly. Luckily, the front suspension kind of takes care of the brunt, but if you are going to be doing jumps with this bike, you need to be going very, very fast. There are some sections where you get to that is very, very steep and there's a lot of rocks. First of all, going up those things, you have to pedal, but you also have to watch out that you don't hit the pedals into the rocks. That's really, really difficult when you're actually got such a heavy bike and you have to find the perfect line to go up those sections. If I didn't, I managed to scrape the bottom of the motor, but it does have enough protection to feel very safe. There is no front derailleur and the front is very well protected. It is actually smaller than the base and the pedals aren't hitting the bottom and you'll be able to hit those mountains very well. The charging brick is pretty small. The cable is fairly long and it means that you can chuck this in the back of your backpack, especially if you're traveling and going to maybe hotels or something like that. This is light enough to carry in your backpack. The charging is also very quick. Overnight, you'll have a full battery. The Shimano Deores performed really well. I found the 10 speeds to be enough for anything, and of course, the motor makes it so much easier. But when I did turn off the motor and just wanted to ride around without it, the bike was heavy. I kind of don't recommend riding without it. One thing, do not turn the motor on when you are actually riding midway. Make sure you turn the motor on before you start riding. There's a lot of adjustments on the bike that you will get used to over time, but from the shop, these guys adjusted it to my height, to my weight, and so I didn't have to touch anything. So a couple of thoughts coming away from my trail ride. First of all, the bike can get damaged pretty easily. There's a lot of rocks, there are a lot of areas that this can get scratched on, but the areas that do get scratched are very thick metal and it won't damage the frame, for example, because it's just not anywhere near those rocks. The front wheels are so large, so thick that it can get through anything and you've got grip in all sorts of corners and speeds. It is a very heavy bike. There are lighter e-bikes, but they also cost 3 times this one right here. And so if you are just getting into mountain biking and you want to go electric because you want to enjoy the entire mountain, I highly recommend this bike as a starter bike. This bike, it's an all-day bike. It's as much time as you have. That 100-kilometer range, you'll never reach it on the mountain. You will not feel tired, and ultimately it's just down to how much energy you have to take up the corners in higher speeds and hold on to the bike. So final thoughts. I think where this is going to sell is to dads like me who are taking their kids out to the mountain and they just want to have an easy time because they're probably not sleeping much through the night and the kids are already tiring them out. Then obviously the people who might be much older and don't have as much fitness to actually ride all day, and that's what this is going to give you. It's going to give you the ability to hit the mountain all day and not wear yourself out. And that's why I'm giving this 8 out of 10. This is an amazing bike, highly recommended at a fantastic price point that you probably won't find anywhere else because it's got a back suspension and front suspension, a powerful 110 Newton meter torque motor, and a giant battery. This bike is by far the best priced bike in the electric mountain bike category I have seen. Big thanks to Reid Cycles for sending me this bike for review. I am so sad to have to give this back. I'd love to have a few more weekends with it to go to the mountains just for fun and not have to film things, but I'm happy that I got to give it a go. Check out the links below where you can purchase it. Make sure to like this video if you did. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And if you guys like this video more, maybe some other brands will send me bikes to check out too. Thanks for watching and I'll catch you all in another one. Bye!